91.3. 91.3 FM. Class 91.3 FM. This is Class 91.3.
Top of the afternoon to you and welcome to 12 Live. You're on Class 91.3 FM in Accra and affiliates across the country. If you're listening in the Voto region, this is OFM 92.5, the Gban FM 102.5. It's also picking the bulletin live. In Tamale, we are live on Radio 192.1 in the Upper West region. Also live on Radio Power 96 in Spain, and around the world you can join us on classfmonline.com. And coming up this afternoon, lawyer for former Maslock CEO Sedina Tamaklo Ationu Enoch Degbe expressed satisfaction about the acquittal and discharge of a client and says the appeal court based its decision primarily on the defective charge sheet.
Proper prima facie determination against our client, and then of course we also attacked the judgment itself. So these were the grounds, but as you may have already heard, in fact, the court only read their conclusion, and then they only dwelt on the first leg of our submission, which was the defective charge sheet.
Now we'll find out what that means as the lawyer prepares to discuss a civil action with the client. Meanwhile, the Attorney General is set to hold a press conference on the matter. There's more on this development story as we head to the court and speak with the former Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Tuya Yeboah.
Also coming up in this bulletin, part of Accra remains without power despite Energy Ministry's assurance. Also, Education Service defends WAEC sanction against latest BEC candidates.
Exams being withheld, investigations ongoing, and sometimes the investigations could take a month or two, And so, however, we are not producing only intellectuals and academics. We are producing people with strong moral character.
FIDA Ghana calls for more funding to support domestic violence survivor.
Need essential services, and some of these essential services include medical care. It also includes legal support. It also includes psychosocial.
The final funeral rites for Apostle Kojo Safo ongoing amid court injunction. These plus many other stories coming your way shortly.
Pleasure for your company this afternoon with us on 12 Live on Class 91.3 FM. My name is Charles Akrofi here with
Elizabeth Adu.
Let's settle for the details of our afternoon stories. A lawyer for acquitted former Maslock CEO Sedina Tamaklo Ationu Enoch Degbe has revealed that his client remains in prison custody and is yet to be informed of the Court of Appeal's decision to overturn her conviction and sentence. Mrs. Tamaklo, who served as Maslock CEO from November 2013 to January 2017, was convicted in absentia on April 16, 2024 and sentenced to 10 years imprisonment with hard labor on 78 counts, including stealing, conspiracy to steal, causing financial loss to the state, money laundering, and contravention of the Public Procurement Act. Her lawyers filed a notice of appeal on May 9, 2024, raising 9 grounds of appeal. In a written submission filed on February 10, 2026, the defense argued that the charges used to prosecute her were defective and failed to provide sufficient details about the offenses she was accused of committing. There's more in the following news desk report.
Sedina Tamaklo Ationu served as Maslock CEO between November 2013 and January 2017. Her legal troubles began in 2017 following an investigation by the Economic and Organized Crime Office, (EOCO), that revealed alleged fraudulent disbursements during her tenure. On January 30, 2019, she was arraigned before the High Court Financial Division alongside her operations manager, Daniel Azim, facing 78 counts including conspiracy to steal, stealing, willfully causing financial loss to the state, causing loss to public property, improper payment of public funds, unauthorized commitments, money laundering, contravention of the Public Procurement Act. During the trial in 2021, the High Court, presided over by Justice Efia Sewa Asariboche, granted Ationu permission to travel to the United States for medical treatment. She, however, failed to return prompting the court to continue proceedings in her absence. On April 16, 2024, the High Court convicted Ationu in absentia and handed her a 10-year prison sentence with hard labor. Her co-accused, Daniel Azim, was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. Prosecution had alleged misappropriation, including a diversion of a 500,000 Ghana cedis loan intended for Obantampa microfinance, the misappropriation of funds from Maslow sensitization programs, the diversion of relief funds for Kantamanto market fire victims, and inflated procurement of vehicles and mobile phones. In July 2024, the government of Ghana formally transmitted an extradition request to the United States through diplomatic channels. The request was initiated under the then NPP administration. United States authorities arrested Sedina Tamaklo Ationu in Nevada in January 2026, pursuant to the Ghana's extradition request, detaining her at the Nevada Southern Detention Center. In April 2026, a United States District Court in Nevada certified her extradition after finding that all legal requirements under the applicable extradition treaty had been met. The matter was referred to the U.S. Secretary of State, who retained final authority to authorize surrender. The U.S. Marshal Service surrendered Ationu to Ghanaian authorities on June 28, 2026, marking the first extradition from the United States to Ghana since 2009. She arrived in Accra on June 9, 2026 and was taken into custody by the Ghana Police Service and Ghana Prison Service. On May 9, 2024, Ationu's lawyer filed a notice of appeal, raising 9 grounds of appeal. In a written submission filed on February 10, 2026, the defense argued that the charges used to prosecute her were defective and failed to provide sufficient details about the offenses. Daniel Azim, Ationu's co-accused, who was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, also appealed his conviction, having served nearly 2 years of his sentence.
So that was a news desk report, and let's get straight onto the phone lines and speak to the former Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Alfred Tuya Yeboah. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much for your time with us here on 12 Live. First of all, what's going to be your reaction to Madam Sedina Atinu's acquittal and discharge?
Yes, I would say that I'm rather sad but not surprised, because this particular proceeding that has ended today, from the time that she was brought to Ghana up to this stage, it started to say was scripted, and that Madam Sedina Tamaklo has now been given a clean bill of health to go back home and then utilize the over 90 million Ghana cedis that she made it state lose.
We understand the charge sheets, as regards the ruling in court, and for which reason why the judge decided that, for want of a better word, they would throw this issue away or acquit and discharge her. The charge sheet in itself, that was used to prosecute her was fundamentally defective.
I've not had the benefit of reading the judgment, but I strike learning that the fact that charge is defective does not automatically lead to an acquittal of an accused person. If the charge sheet were defective, as they wanted to believe, then they should order a retrial. I've not read the judgment, but if she was acquitted based on a technical ground that the charge sheet was defective, then I expect a consequential order from the court ordering that she should be retried. But from what I've read, it's more than that. That the court is seeking to say, or is saying that the state could not prove its case against Madam Sedina Tamaklo. If this is what the court of appeal has held today, then I'm very much surprised. I will never support it, because the evidence on record, as we had when we prosecuted the matter, is so overwhelming that any court of law sees jurisdiction over the matter will come to only one conclusion, the conclusion being that the prosecution proved its case beyond reasonable doubt against Madam Sedina Tamaklo. Why am I saying so? We prosecuted this case under various headings. One, Madam Sedina Tamaklo, the CEO, they decided to advance an amount of 500,000 Ghana cedis as loan to a microfinance company in the Ashanti region. It was written ADB check. When the company received this check, the company realized that they needed to know more about the conditions. Then they were told that it was 4% per month. Government said that they could not take the 4% per month, and for that matter, they were ready to return the check. But guess what? Madam Sedina Temaklu told the bank that they should cash the amount and then bring her cash. They duly complied by cashing 500,000 Ghana cedis. That was 2014, 2015. Send the money to her in Accra at Bachuna, a total filling station. She took the money there, receipted this money, and then they left. The money that she took never went back into the accounts of Maslok. And so if this overwhelming evidence, this strong evidence is on record, and the court will say the state could not prove this case, then I beg to differ. There was also an instance where there was this fire at Kantamanto, where His Excellency President Mahama in 2014 decided that, being the current president, the women in the market should have access to some kind of support. So an amount of close to 1.5 million Ghana cedis was voted for it. Guess what? This amount, close to 600,000 of that amount was not utilized for the purpose for which it was given. And the remaining that amount did not also go back to Maslok account. There is credible evidence on that.
Okay.
Which our investigators did. If you also take the third scenario, where Maslok decided to do sanitization program for some of its customers and financial literacy. In one instance, they voted an amount of 1.7 million Ghana cedis, almost close to 1.8. But guess what? Only 1,300 Ghana cedis was used out of that amount. The remainder, close to 1.7, was not utilized. The money didn't go back to the accounts of Maslok. It went into the private pocket of this accused person who has been acquitted and discharged by the court. There's another 246,000 Ghana cedis, which was also to be used to also sensitize some people, some of their customers. Not even a single amount was used out of that amount. The amount was stolen and squandered by her. Then what is more, Maslok decided that they're going to buy cars for drivers to pay, to work and pay. Over 350 cars, very notable and then noble adventure. However, at the time that they bought those cars, the highest price in the market, if you are even going to go for the highest, if you accumulate everything, it was not up to, it was almost close to $10 million. But guess what? She bought this vehicle for $14.5 million. So the state lost close to $4.5 million. Everything was done by the investigators from Yoko. The prosecutors from the Attorney General's office, I must also commend them for spending sleepless nights, combing through all the evidence. Not less than 7 witnesses were called by the state. We proved the case beyond reasonable doubt. This lady decided not to even come and mount a defense to show that, yes, what you are saying is not the case. So on what basis will a court say that the state was not able to lead evidence beyond reasonable doubt to show that this lady was guilty? Fine. If she's been acquitted and discharged, speaking now, I cannot have any other authority. The only authority that I have is speak to or speak to the conscience of the people in government, for example, the Attorney General, to look at this judgment again. I see this judgment as being very cancerous. The president being set out of this judgment is so dangerous that those in public office may decide to squander and plunder state resources. They may be convicted, but when the party comes in, if the party that they belong to, they may be acquitted and discharged. So if you ask me, this is my honest opinion. Anti-corruption fighters, I urge them. I'm speaking like a politician. Maybe you may not believe me, but corruption fighters, those in the CSOs, those in the media, take interest in this matter. They're more to the point also. We are told that Sedina Temaklu filed his appeal 1 month after a conviction in Ghana. Very strange. While in office, only the other gentleman in this particular matter filed an appeal. So we were surprised later when I got to know that she has filed an appeal. The Attorney General's office was never served with any appeal that she filed within 1 month after her conviction. But she now says that she filed an appeal. And based on that appeal, she's been acquitted and discharged. The media, you may have to ask questions. Get a copy of the notice of appeal. Cross it from the court. Check when it was entered in their record book. When was it filed? If it was filed, was it entered in the filing record book? All this must be looked at.
Right.
Because it's not easy prosecuting a case. And I also pity the attorneys in the AG's office for all this work that they've done, only for a court going to the record to say that there was no basis for her conviction. We are waiting. If I had my way and if I had the power, after reading the judgment, I may want to go to the Supreme Court. But I don't have that power. It's left to the Attorney General to look at it.
Okay. So this Tamaklo issue, in fact, was initiated during your administration. I'm talking about the MPP administration. And then the prosecution continued under the current NDC administration. Is this outcome a reflection of a deeper systemic issue that transcends perhaps political administrations? Or is it a case of prosecutorial failure at the trial level?
I will not say it's prosecutorial failure at the trial level, but rather politicians taking advantage of the situation to clear their own. It's a dangerous thing that we are doing. In terms of if you get the record of proceedings and you go through it, even if you are a lay person, you come to some conclusion of the matter that this matter stinks. And if someone will be acquitted and discharged out of the proceedings, then God be our helper.
Right. You previously stated that you would be extremely surprised if Sedina Tamaklo, was granted bail, noting it could send the wrong signal, just as you've explained. Now that she has been acquitted, entirely, does this rulings, you've said that it risks sending the bad signal, but what does it mean to us as a people in terms of the fight against corruption by, the authorities that be?
Yes, it has taken us back and is defeating our fight against corruption. Those in the anti-corruption media space and those in the other CSO space must be worried. They must take interest in this judgment. Get the original record of proceedings that we had at the High Court. They must also take hold of the judgment delivered by the High Court. Then take the Court of Appeal judgment. They can get experts who are non-partisan. I'm a partisan person. For them to also go through the record to see whether this judgment is rather not taking us back.
Okay.
Corruption, I dare say, is something that we all need to fight regardless of our political colors. People in my party who are corrupt and there's evidence against them and they are prosecuted and they are convicted, why should I complain? The same way, if people in the other party, some are also corrupt, they are arrested, they are prosecuted, they are convicted, then we move on. But if we think that our party is in government, all cases that the previous government did, we want to undo them, fine. Tomorrow, as I always say, it's not far from today. We may get another party that also come and do things, and Ghana will be the ultimate loser.
Well, let me thank you.
About 90 million Ghana cedis. 90 million Ghana cedis. So we are recovering zero. God help us.
Mr. Yeboah, let me thank you this afternoon for your time with us on 12 Live.
Thank you.
And that's the former Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Tuya Yeboah there. Meanwhile, the legal representative for Sedina Tamaklo, Enoch Degbe, has been speaking. And take a listen to what he's been telling the press after proceedings today.
In fact, for agreeing with our submissions. So we thank Milords for their erudite reasoning. However, we would just wait for the entire judgment. Milords have said that the judgment will be ready by close of today. So we'll take get copies of the judgment, and then we can peruse it, and then we can make comments subsequently. But I am a happy person. And
what were the grounds that you
Oh, in fact, I would say in terms of strategy, okay, we had come essentially on three main grounds. On the fact that the charge sheet itself was defective.
And so that's the legal representative for Madam Sedina Atieno, now discharged, acquitted, and discharged. Enoch Degbe there. This is 12 Live here on Class 91.3 FM. We also understand that the Attorney General's department would be, or the Attorney General would be briefing the press today as regards this development as we have it from the courts. And as and when they do, definitely you trust that will bring you all the details right here on Class 91.3 FM. For now, though, let's move on to some other stories.
The Ghana Education Service has defended the sanctions imposed by the West Africa Examination Council (WAEC) on candidates involved in examination malpractice during the 2026 Basic Education Certificate Examination (BEC), saying the measures are necessary to protect the integrity of the country's education system. WAEC has sanctioned more than 3,400 candidates, cancelling the subject results of 496 candidates and the entire results of 105 others following investigations. The council also withheld the subject results of 2,722 candidates from 229 schools for further scrutiny, while the subject results of 119 candidates and the entire results of 48 candidates remains withheld pending investigations. Reacting to the move by WAEC, the Ghana Education Service says although the sanctions may delay some students' progression to senior high schools due to a process must be followed, and the public relations officer for GES, Daniel Fenny, spoke to Class News.
Exams being withheld, investigations ongoing, and sometimes the investigations could take a month or two, and so it might. Okay. However, we are not producing only intellectuals and academics. We are producing people with strong moral character. And so if there's room to suspect that some misconduct, some misbehavior took place, then we need to pause and investigate. We can't ask them to go when we are investigating suspected crimes and all that. Just as when adults, when somebody commits crime and is before court or before the law, the person may not be able to travel outside the country.
That's the public relations officer for the Ghana Education Service, Daniel Fenyin. Joining us on the line is education specialist Divine Kpe to give us an assessment on the 2026 BEC results. Good afternoon, Mr. Divine. What's your assessment with the final results that was released by WAEC and the number of candidates who have been sanctioned because of examination malpractice?
All right, thank you, Elizabeth, and good afternoon to your listeners. Well, I've seen the results. Actually, nothing new. I think it just follows the usual trend. The interesting thing about this is that you already know the distribution of the result before it comes out. Before the question is being set, you already know that 4% of the learners or the candidates are going to fail. You also know 4% are going to get one in their papers or final grade, and follows like that through to grade 1 to grade 9, which is the fail. So because it uses what we call the standard grading system, so with that non-reference assessment format, the trend will never change. You are going on anytime you draw the normal curve to see how the trend is going to be the same, because some percentage of students might get 9, some percentage of students might get 1, some percentage of students is already established that will get 2 or 3. So that is already laid down. So there's nothing new actually about the performance. And the interesting thing also about this is that we do not compare performance of a year to a previous year. Because it is a non-reference and not a criterion reference. If there's a criterion reference like the WASE, we say okay, there's a standard or there's a mark. If you get 50% in your BC, then you are getting aggregate 2. If you get 60%, you are getting aggregate 1. It's not a case for BC. BC you can even get 90%, and you may end up getting 2. Or based on the performance of your colleagues that you wrote the entire paper with. So with that, we can also tell how the performance is with this year compared to other previous years, because that will be anomaly in terms of comparison. So for me, the most interesting thing about it is about the number of subject results held and also the absential in terms of those who couldn't present themselves to write the BEC. This year we saw about 3.4 thousand learners that were not able to sit for the BEC. And over the years, we have actually not gathered data on why students register but they do not write in the papers. It is one of the shortfalls within the system that we have not been able to avert our mind to. So for me, it is high time that we begin to take interest to understand why learners, because the number keeps increasing, why learners will register but not turn out to write the BEC. Several factors could account for that. Yes, we can do several hypotheses, but we need to know what are the main things, what are the key drivers to see what stopgap measures can be put in place to address them. On the issue of irregularity, that is also a challenge that we have not been able to stem this canker, and the numbers actually still not looking good if you look at the performance in terms of those who were engaged in irregularities in previous year. The numbers still doesn't look like there's any significant improvement. It tells that we still have a long way to go. Over the years, our concentration has been on the WASI, looking at irregularities at that level, and let's talk about at the BC level. But I think it is the same habit that is repeated at the senior high school level, and therefore, if we want to talk about issues of irregularities in our examination, it doesn't have to be just at the WASE level, but we need to bring that of the BC also at the front burner by taking action, system action again, especially vigilators that actually collate with these learners to undertake issues of examination more practice.
All right, but before I let you go, the education minister went to a press conference and was asking some questions about the introduction of corporal punishment. What's your take on that?
Well, that is a big elephant in the room. I think as a country, we are still divided on whether we should or we should not. And in a clever way, he did not state a position. He threw it out as a question for the debate to reach. So there's ongoing action on terms of conference on discipline in our schools. So with that conference ongoing, I think it presents an opportunity for stakeholders to come to a consensus on what approach actually they think that should be. I have my own reservation on issues of corporal punishment because of the extent to which some teachers can misuse that means of disciplining students. In any case, I think it should even be the last resort after all measures are exhausted, disciplinary measures are exhausted, then we could talk about that. But it shouldn't be at the front burner in terms of disciplining learners, not at all. So that's my personal take. But as I said, this is a raging issue that we have not come to a consensus on, because at times you will see parents themselves dragging their own children to school for teachers to cane for them. If there are an issue in school and then teachers report to parents, some parents are in strong support, but hey, it's my word, cane the child for me or discipline the child in a more corporal way. So there are people that are still advocating for that. I think the conference gives us the opportunity to have a point of convergence to see which is the best way to go. But like I said, my personal view is that we may not want to strongly advocate for corporal punishment as a first port of call when it comes to addressing discipline in our school, because of the replication it carries in terms of some learners, of course, even drop out of school because of issues of corporal punishment. And you could see the extent to which some teachers could abuse the cane, leaving mark on the learners. So,
right.
As a developing country, we need to be very skeptical in how we advocate highly for introduction of corporal punishment.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time. That's education specialist Divine Kwe giving us his assessment on the BEC and his thoughts on the statement made by the education minister Haruna Ijusu on corporal punishment.
Let's do some African news before we take a leave of you this afternoon. And the Ebola outbreak in Eastern Congo is worsening food insecurity in a country already battling with one of the world's largest humanitarian crises. And that's according to the head of the United Nations Food Agency, who actually addressed the press on Wednesday, speaking during a visit to Ituri province. Kauskau, acting executive secretary or director of the World Bank World Food Program, described the outbreak as a crisis on top of a crisis. And according to him, it was already catastrophic when it comes to food and security. Some 5 million people are in emergency levels of food insecurity, and there are also pockets of disaster level in food insecurity. And this is the development we're hearing from the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's so 12 live here on Class 91.3 FM. Even as we take a leave or we wrap up this afternoon, Elizabeth.
Are you ready to review your fortune? Review Scratch for Win is here to change your life for good. Just dial star 850 star 5 hash and win up to 1 million Ghana cedis or more in cash prizes instantly. It's easy. It's exciting and regulated by the National Lottery Authority. Just dial star 850 star 5 hash to play on all network. Choose your station to play the game. Select take amount from 5 cedis to 2,000 Ghana cedis. Choose your lucky card out of the 5 options. Confirm gameplay and enter your Momo pin and receive your game results and winnings instantly. It's easy, fun, and exciting. Get ready to scratch, win, and live your best life with Review Scratch for Win. Up to 1 million Ghana cedis up for grabs. Review Scratch for Win, Scratch Keke. Nadisika say bam. That's our wrap up 12 live right on Class 91.3 FM. For more news and updates, do log on to classfmonline.com. The news team will be back on 5:05 with Kwame Ochi Jr. to give you the latest and what is happening around the world. I am Elizabeth Aidu.
And I'm Charles Akrofi. Remember to always visit classfmonline.com for some more stories. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. Up next is the Afternoon Business Review with Oye Ankrah and Nana Jimen Prempe. Good afternoon.